Carol Leonnig, tell me what we know to be the facts at this hour about the classified documents that the Biden White House and the Biden lawyers have turned over to the archives and DOJ.
Nicole, you couldn't be more right in focusing on the differences between the so-called Trump case and the Biden case. What we know so far about Biden's classified records is that an assistant in his office is feeling very badly because there were less than a dozen, but still at least 11 or 12 copies of documents that were classified that were in and discovered in early November in his center based in Wilmington and also with Washington offices. Later, very much later, in the last couple of days, a handful more of documents were found that were closer to Biden's home in Wilmington. These stem from his time as vice president. And the big question is, of course, how did these get stuffed essentially into boxes full of other records, diplomatic information, personal notes, reports, etc.? How did this happen? But what we also know is that in both instances, in early November and again in this last week, the Department of Justice was notified by intermediaries for President Biden that these documents existed and needed to be returned post-haste. The special counsel naming, as I'm sure you have explored and will explore in much more detail, is a decision by the Attorney General that this couldn't look more worse. Even though the cases are so different, you cannot have an Attorney General appointed by a president now responsible for investigating whether anything untoward happened in the handling of these records in places that were not secured. Now, it was not a private club in West Palm Beach, but it was still not a locked, classified document storage room or a SCIF. And so this must be thoroughly investigated, how these documents got there and whether or not there is any damage assessment, any damage done from the fact that they were not properly secured.
And Harry Litman, what I'd like to understand is, it's my sense from two sources close to Biden world that the investigation conducted by the U.S. Attorney out of the Midwest was probing all the questions, all the smart questions and security concerns Carol just delineated. It's my understanding that the clock starts over, the investigation starts over, with the special counsel being named. Why, in your view, was this step necessary?
Well, you know, Nicole, I'm really a dissenter here. I don't think it was necessary because the regulation that Garland invokes says specifically you have to determine that a criminal investigation is warranted before you get to extraordinary circumstances. And we've heard a lot of reasons to worry about the politics of it, even the policy, what happens and why is it so apparently easy to spirit out classified documents, but not a whisper of potential criminal conduct unless what the Chicago U.S. Attorney told Garland is more than's been reported. The clock does start over now, but that's because under the regulation, a special counsel has to come from outside the department, her being a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, now attorney in private practice, highly respected, sort of hard-nosed. And so the internal U.S. attorney in Chicago wouldn't fit that bill. But I think it's telling that Garland made a decision. Everyone is applauding it, but nevertheless, the letter of the regulation, I think, did not require it.
Well, I don't know who everyone is that's applauding it. I didn't hear the claps in the calls I've been making for the last 24 hours. I also
think... my first hit.
Let's stay here, Harry. Let's not zoom past this, because I think there are a lot of dissenters, and you just made a very important legal distinction. Special counsel regs are for criminal investigations that are extraordinary in nature. And there's something oxymoronic about Garland standing there and saying, we can handle it with integrity, but we won't. Feels like a bit of a dodge. What is Garland protecting?
You know, well, protecting, I mean, I think he is bowing to the political imperative, which was getting louder and louder and would continue to be. But I think you are 100% right. He could have stood up and said, look, under the regs, there first must be a criminal investigation warranted. And if there were one here, and we have no reason to think it, Nicole, but presumably it would be this medium level staffer to the vice president some 8 years ago. That's not the sort of thing you need a special counsel for. You need a special counsel for Biden if Biden has acted criminally. But the record seems quite clear from what we know. Not only was there no intent, which is the standard we've heard again and again and again with Trump, there's not even knowledge. The inadvertence here isn't even on his part. So I personally don't see what the special counsel is supposed to look into. Nevertheless, if the special counsel looks into it, gives him a clean bill of health, it will blunt the increasing noisy criticism from the Hill and the new speaker about the so-called double standard.